is now 7:01, so I'd like to call the meeting of the Norfolk Advisory Committee for October 8th to order. Take a roll call vote. Kevin Calco. Here. Harry here. Bruce Terrio.
Here.
And Cecile.
Here.
Ken Fitzgerald. Here. Jonathan Hurwitz. Here. We have a forum. We have a variety of articles for review tonight. Gary Tapper is here from the Historic Commission to talk to us about the Article 10, which covers demolition work of historic buildings, or potentially historic buildings, I guess. But why don't I turn it over to Jerry? Thank you for coming.
Well, the current demolition delay law is 6 months. And the law itself is designed to encourage property owners to preserve rather than tear down the property that's restored. Based on the current law, if an inspector receives an application from a property owner to demolish a building that is 75 years old or older, that demolition application is forwarded to the Historical Commission. Once we have the application, we have 45 days to make a determination as to whether or not the building, is of historic significance, value. And if we find that it is, by majority vote, we can impose a 6-month delay. However, the delay does not start on the date of the passing of our judgment. It reverts back to the date of the original application. And given that we have 45 days, because we're a volunteer committee, and sometimes it takes time to get everybody together and meet with the property owner, provide documentation and information about property and its historic value. It takes time. So that 6-month delay can really only be 45 days, can only be 4.5 months rather than 6 months. And if, the property were to be preserved, or say, for example, someone wants to purchase it for a minimal cost and make arrangements to move it, by the time they get all of the applications and improvements in order, delay is, expired. So it would be much more beneficial for us to increase it to 6 months. And Norfolk has lost a lot of historical buildings, and I do have a handout that I've listed here. I've listed a partial list of sites that have been demolished. And then the next one is a partial list of properties in Norfolk that we consider important now that would be in danger of demolition if they were to be sold. So, and I will go over all of that with you. The other, here we go. So, for example, some of the properties that have been destroyed already were the Bear House and Sweet Man Farm. Some of you may remember that. I mean, that was a beautiful farmhouse in an adjacent little building, but they raised, they provided dairy, cattle, and beef and vegetables to a famous restaurant in Boston. And, so when it was demolished, fire department burnt it down for practice, and they tend to do that once a building is determined it's going to be. And then we have the Perigo House at 234 Main Street, which was built around the 1700s. And James Perigo was a renowned clockmaker that his family lived there. And Longobardi Farm and the Richardson Farm, which was down in the City Mills, and that was a more recent one. And it was originally built by Petty family. No, it was originally built by Major Richardson and later purchased and torn down by William Sweat. There was a big controversy about why he tore it down and moved to Rentham. And then we, of course, we have Weir's Tavern in the center of town that there were claims that George Washington stayed there en route from Boston to New York during the Revolutionary War, and his troops camped on Town Hill. And then later it served as the rectory for St. Jude's Parish before the building was torn down and country crossing was built. And then, of course, we have Misty Meadow Farm at 115 Union Street that belonged to Emily Jakes. And if you go to the library, you can see a mural in the library that was preserved that she had actually painted on the living room walls of her house. And she called it Misty Meadow Farm because she liked looking out of it in the morning. Sam Ziegler was the one who actually rescued that, and it was donated to the library, and it's on display there. But what's really critical, because those are just a few of the places that have been already lost. But what we are really concerned about, and this is still even a partial list, of the properties that would be in danger of demolition if they were to be sold, namely the Ware lands. Okay, that was a well-known dairy farm. Charlotte Ware produced milk that was of the highest quality, and that is listed in the register. The Signal Schoolhouse at 46 Myrtle Street is currently a private home, but it was the American Legion Hall, and it's the only existing school building on its original site. There have been other one-room schoolhouses that have been demolished, so moved. And then the Stephen Turner House at 187 Seacorn Street, around 1750. That house belonged to Charlie and Betsy Pine. Most of you probably know them. And fortunately, when Betsy listed that house, she listed it with a realtor who, was interested in historic properties, and the people that bought it, like historic houses. So that one's safe right now. And then we have, of course, the Boyd Miller House at 86 Myrtle Street. That was owned by Dr. Nathaniel Miller, who built a hospital on the property. And that was also the site of the original meeting of the Montgomery Lodge of Masons in 1797 with Paul Revere in attendance. So that's a really important house, and that house is, if you go by it, it's kind of in sad shape now, so something needs to be done about it. Anyway, and then we have the Solomon Blake House at 97 North Street, which is one of the first homes in Norfolk to have a basement. The Henry Kirk Pond Eisner House at 48 Everett Street, that one is architecturally significant. And it also has, because it's so architecturally significant, it has a preservation restriction on the building. Then there's Cook's Tavern, and that is the home of the Ziegler family, so that's in capable hands. And we have the Albertus J. Whiting House at 26 Valley Street, and that's said to be the oldest building in the Hornville area. Currently in the capable hands of the Whitney. Betsy Whitney is an active member of the Historical Commission. He wrote a book called The History of Hornville. You probably know her. And then the Blake Campbell House, which is one that is on our radar right now at 118 Main Street under Blacksmith Shop, because that's probably for sale. And the other one that, fingers crossed that it still happens, is George Thayer Dupuy House at 15 Rockwood Road. Excuse me, right next to the railroad tracks, but that's a special situation because the current owner, Stephen Gray, originally applied for a demolition application, and we imposed a 6-month delay, but then we went and met him on the property. We walked the property. I gave him all kinds of documentation about how important that house is and the history behind it. And he came back and said, well, you know what? I will save the house and turn it into apartments, but I'd like to tear down the barn. And Sam Ziegler had looked at the barn and we decided that it's in bad shape, so we will tear down the barn. But that is a rare exception to people applying for demolition applications and wanting to save them. It was also the home of Frank Gross, and you must remember Frank Gross, who was the town moderator. It was his law office as well.
It was my first house in town. I
Now,
lived in the apartment.
you did. Well, then there you go. He even said, and the new building that he's planning to build, he's gonna try to use some of the architecture of that existing. But there's pictures of all of the, those 10, there's 10 properties there that I cited, but there are more, but the list would go on and on. And demo delay laws in neighboring towns include Rentham 12 months, Franklin 12 months, Walpole 12 months, and Medfield 18 months. But increasing our law from 6 to 12 months would allow us additional time to attempt to preserve historic buildings, or attempt to, find somebody who's willing to work with us to do that. And would also bring us in line with the demolition delay laws in our neighboring towns. Really, 6 months is just not enough time. And we really would appreciate your support in our endeavor to make the change.
Great, thank you. Very helpful. I have a couple questions. I'm gonna have a question as well. Do you maintain an inventory of houses? I mean, it would obviously be rolling as the years go forward, that are over 70 years old, so.
Well,
Because all of these houses were built, I think every single one was built before beginning of last century.
we have a survey of all of the historic homes in town that in the next year or so, we will be looking to update, because that was done by, by Kathleen Broomer. I think it was 2008 or 2009. It's been a while, and we still refer to it, and it lists all of the homes with the history behind the homes. And we do have in our file any home that comes up for demolition, we have a record of. As I said, it's hard to, keep track, but do we have a database? No, I wish we did.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. My questions are actually kind of down the same line of thinking. Is there any criteria or qualification to designate something as historical other than the age, other than 75 years?
Well, no, you have to look at the architecture of the building. Is it special? Was it the home of a person who was prominent in early Norfolk history? Did they have a farm, a successful farm? Did they run a business that was important to Norfolk? All of those things are taken into consideration about that. For example, the Werelands, that was renowned. Charlotte Weir's dairy at one point, was well known and claimed to have produced the highest quality of milk.
The reason I'm asking where I'm going with this is don't take this as opposition to the proposal. I'm in favor of proper examination of historic properties. But 75 years, we're 1950, there's not going to be any properties that meet that description. Every year that goes on, my house is going to be on that list soon, and there's nothing notable about my house. So my point being is, as time progresses, if we don't continue, to David's point, but the newest house on the list you presented is 125 years old. 1900 is the newest date, and they get older from there. Soon enough, we're going to be looking at Dutch colonials from 1977, which is my house. And if I need to demolish it, am I going to be subjected to an unreasonable 6-month delay because it needs to go before the historical commission? My point in this being is I would be in support of this if there was some definition in addition to 75 years old, such that it could be, if it's going to be subject to a delay and subject to a review and subject the homeowner to potentially not just 6 months, but up to 18 months, we're talking about in Medfield, which could cause some financial impact to that homeowner. I think it needs to pass some level of muster that it's an actual historic property as opposed to just having reached 75 years.
I hear what you're saying, and we have, we have approved several demolition applications of homes in the category that you mentioned, because, they're, within that time period, but we found them not to really be historically significant. On the other hand, you talk about 75 years ago, you're looking at the homes that, were built after World War II, like maybe the first ranch house that was built in Norfolk is, worth saving. You have to look at it all. Individual properties have their own uniqueness, and, if they were lived in by someone who made great contributions to the town, or there's something, historically significant or unusual about the architecture. It's the architecture as well as the age. And who lived there and what contributions did they make to the town? Are also all taken into consideration. And that's why, we're very fortunate that we have Sam Ziegler on our commission, because he's the person that, can go into a home, no matter how old it is, and determine if, something is worthwhile. And that's one of the things that we can do, because a lot of times the homeowner will allow us to go in there, and if there's, some piece of architecture or certain kind of wood in the home that could be reused, take that into consideration.
Yeah, Jonathan, I was very similar train of thought, knowing that my house is now 67 years old and nobody wants to save or ranch. Except, what if my wonderfully intelligent daughter ends up being president of the United States? In 100 years, somebody wants to tear down that street on Boardman Street. They'll say, "Wait a minute, President Alexander, or whatever, Roman, not whatever."
This is her first husband?
No, she was raised there. Holy smokes, that's historic. So I think the fact that you give the committee the chance to think about the committee, it's not an automatic 75 years and it's historic. That's the threshold. And then let's talk about the house.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, my house, you will right now allowed to be demolished in a second. Nobody would miss it. But there's something else, So I think that because you couldn't write the bylaw to cover everything. You couldn't write, well, if there's, historic person who lived there, historic architecture. Well, what if it was like the scene of a horrific crime, which has, historic
Point taken, but my counterpoint to that would be, we should have the database of houses that are deemed historic, and this should be written.
Well,
If those houses are on this list, then they would be subject to this, and if they're not on this list, let's not subject the homeowner to any undue delays.
But they won't have an undue delay, because they'll go to the board, and the board will say in 45 minutes, 45 days, or perhaps 45 minutes if it's really ridiculous.
Right, I mean, the
Government works quickly, huh?
well, 45 days sounds like a long time, but when you take into consideration that we are a totally volunteer board, and sometimes it's hard to get a quorum together. I mean, we're short people as it is right now, and it's sometimes difficult to get a quorum together. So it takes time to get the committee together, meet with the property owner, look, at all of the documentation that we have. And as I said, we do have the survey, and on the website, all of the historic homes are listed starting way back up to the 21st century. They're there. Maybe not every single house, but and the community does have access to the database that the assessors department keeps. You can go onto the website and look up the assessors department and go to property search and put in any address. And if that is a viable property in Norfolk, it will come up, and all of the information there about when it was built, and all the specifics on it, how many rooms it has and whatnot. That's all on that data, in that, I guess you call it the database. So,
Just your questions.
I did. In the history of the commission, do you recall where there was a time that you didn't have enough of an opportunity based on 6 months, 45 days, 6 months, whatever, that you potentially lost a property that you didn't have a chance to act on?
oh, well, when this law was first passed, we didn't have 45 days, we had 14 days. And there was just no way we could do anything in 14 days. And that's why there was an amendment. Yeah, when the amendment was. I think I was on the commission, but I didn't have a major role in the commission. But I know that there was an amendment that changed it from 45 days, from 14 days to 45 days. There's also another avenue that a property owner can take. If they go on our website, they can apply for they can apply directly to us for a preliminary review. And we have a longer period of time, to work that out before they even apply to demolish the property. They can apply to us to take a look at it and let them know if, it might, be voted on to impose a delay.
Yes.
Follow up, sorry about that.
No,
So in looking at it from a different perspective, let's say I'm a homeowner and I have a home that is old. I've requested the commission to come in and take a look at it and whether I can demolish it or not. Would this indirectly impact any potential owner of any of these homes where they were trying to make plans to demolish to build for their family and they're now held up an additional 6 months?
Well, if they apply, if they apply directly to us to take a look at it and give them an idea that this is potentially a historic house, and we would like to work with them and do everything in our power to help them to think about preserving at least part of it. That would be that option, and they haven't even applied for the demolition permit, so they might, have a chance to reconsider total demolition and maybe make arrangements to either sell it to somebody who might want to move it, or, maybe they can put in, demolish part of it. We did have a house on Baltimore Street about a year or so ago, and they only wanted to do a partial demolition, and that was fine.
Okay. All right, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Jared. We'll be making our decisions on this next week.
Okay, will you let us know?
Yeah.
Great.
I'd like to ask, Ben Sprague, discuss article, the citizens petition. And if you want to join us up here, for Gary City.
No, see,
Thank you for coming, thanks.
Probably should have significance of Gary sitting in the apartment to it's listed.
Well, if he's ever present. Thank you, Ben, and prepared a significant document. I hope you don't read it all the way through.
I don't plan on reading most of it. I think it's more for everybody hears information and just take your questions. Whether I answer your question by pointing to the document, all the time I do have references and everything is backed by what I believe is fact check data.
What first comment that I've been, I understand that right now it's not if we're action. We pass it. If is not informed, then you can then authorize what is required, which is, I think you,
Yeah.
clearly, like the first paragraph there, act of legislature.
Sure.
So, and did you look at the possible alternative language before you filed it, or looking for a sense of meaning, or?
So I guess I understand that maybe the language wasn't written out absolute in the way I did the signatures through it. Now maybe I could be wrong. Obviously, don't do a lot of local government. But
Neither do we. No.
but like changing it from 3 to 5 is a general statement to get those signatures. So if wording has to change, I don't think we jeopardize that with the signatures I got, because I want to change the bylaws, because stated in the bylaws is 3, and I want to change the bylaws to 5. Leaving it open-ended like that, I think allows us to go through the legislative branch of a Beacon Hill.
Not according to town council. They've said it's not actionable in the format. And what happens is these go in the attorney general's office for review, and this will be automatically deemed as not appropriate. I think Rob used the language we were discussing this last week, to seek approval from the general court or something, which this does not do. I don't know what your options are.
Well, wouldn't that be implied?
It's
Not
gotta
asking,
be,
not asking through
gotta be stated. Go ahead.
Yeah, so then because we don't have a charter,
Right.
our changes to local forms of, or changes to local form of government has to be a special act of the legislature. And we have to go to town meeting with the language of the special act.
Exactly the way it's been.
The way it's written, like we did when we went to a town administrator back in '94, we had a special act that laid it out. I used to work in the governor's legislative office, and we reviewed local stuff like this, and generally, like, they can't amend it, the words can't be different, so town meeting voted on this, but we changed it into an act. The House Counsel's office would probably say, I'm sorry, that's not what the town voted.
Okay.
So you have to go back and actually vote this.
So why couldn't we, if the town does vote on a 3 to 5, after that, why can't the town at that moment in time why can't council at that time make the correct word? If we vote on this, why, if the town wants that and people in the town want it, why can't actions be taken after, whether the wording is correct or not? I get it. Like, I get what you're saying, but like, being as though like people understand what they're voting for, not maybe the legal aspects of it, what town council is gonna say, but it's pretty clear that. And I don't think you can push back, I'm just.
What I'm gonna say is, we can't answer that question.
Sure.
It's a question you're gonna have to talk to the select board or.
Well, I don't, I mean,
It is kind of around.
I would have to talk to town council, I don't think the select board has any, under my understanding, the select board has no say in this.
Town council works for the select.
Sure.
So I don't think you're gonna be able to talk to the council unless they are aware of that. And I'll turn Michael on that, but it's. Every time they pick up the phone.
The town council works for the people of the town, not.
Town house has a contract with the select board.
That he can't talk to residents.
It's available, you make a phone call, the clock starts, sure, so, and they won't pick it up unless they've had authorization to take the call. So it's the select board is our governing body. The council works for the governing body, so.
So even if the wording needs to be adjusted, it's my understanding that he'd have the opportunity to do that on town meeting floor. The theme is still in line with what he was going to do.
You've got friendly minutes. You've got friendly minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Having said that, I'll open it up to questions if people have questions on the intent or their expectations or whatever. I mean, a lot of the stuff is covered in your, you do a lot of good background on this stuff. Go ahead, John.
Yes. Thank you for putting all this together. Sorry if I'm missing something obvious, if this is a obvious question. How can we have a typo currently with 3 select board members? It refers that one of the benefits is eliminating.
That is, if someone says they're not, they can abstain themselves from the vote, so you can still have a tie. I granted you can have it
Is
in,
that not the same risk of if?
so I think the data.
In 5, I'm just not sure how that actually changes.
Yeah, I think based on, and you can, the reference, you can check, it just happen, it can happen more than 3-member board than it can in a 5 based on the data. I'm not saying it can't happen, but the chances of it, somebody abstaining on a 3 versus somebody abstaining on a 5 or losing that. I think the data just shows from the reference that it can't happen more than a 3-person. Not that it wouldn't happen in a 5-person, but it obviously can if somebody abstains.
Okay, thank you. One other question. Humor me on this one. Sure. If 5 is better than 3, why is 7 not better than 5? I feel that's
Select.
Gotta be a town council.
That's the town.
Can't be select board, so.
I'm not saying, I guess I'm not arguing that 7 wouldn't be better than 5. What I'm saying is I think taking small steps to improve things slowly and surely. If 5 can work, well, then maybe we go to 7, but I think if we jump to 7, maybe we run into, I don't have the data of what I'm saying, but based on what I saw, I think you saw there was a really good increase of engagement once you went to 5. I didn't do the research, but there was more engagement when you went to 7, but towns that have switched to 5, because it reduces workload on the select board members that are all volunteer parties, and now you can have subcommittees of people. It seems that more things get done. You just saw more engagement. I don't know what the data says on 7, so my plan was to do based on what we have and what around 150 towns in Massachusetts have to 5 versus select board.
What Kevin said was the state statute. Short. 3, 5.
yes.
Anything above 5, go.
Like
Frank.
Jonathan's right. Wakefield has 7, as does Groton.
Do they have their own charter though?
You have to have a special act. So you're right, like a special act. So the one thing I ask council is why he thinks, is there something, so you often need a special act, changing another special act, right? If you already set up your form of government one way, right, because statute does give you 3 or 5 as an option.
Right. Yeah, so like I didn't think there's anything that like said no.
So was there
Mass
something?
general law.
Did we have some special act we passed at one point that referenced the 3 members of the board of selectmen?
Do you have any answers to that, Michael? I mean, yeah.
And I didn't find anything.
There's a lot of language out there. There's language out there. Foxborough, Millis, Franklin,
Without a special act?
with the special act. There's language for the special act to go for 3 to 5.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
Okay,
okay.
so I guess I would love
That language matters, but.
right, and I would love to, do that, right, I can do that, I would ask that at town meeting, and change the language, that's easy enough to do. That's the little thing we have to do.
I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead, Rob.
And this is just supposition, this is up to the moderator.
Mhm.
Sometimes he's pretty strict on amendments, and he might say, well, you didn't get signatures that has the special act, you got signatures that says 3 to 5.
Sure.
So I'm just.
Good, now here's this question, I get he has absolute right to do that, and it's his discretion on whether he thinks. At that point in time, if I asked for 100 people to raise their hand and that would support the language, and I could give my 100 people I need for the special election, I was right at that time, so it's fine, I don't think. Well, it's that certified if they all raise their hand and are legal voters, just like the vote at town would be, right? And I'm just spitballing here, right?
You're spitballing something that I'm afraid none of us want to answer.
Okay, sure.
Or our.
To be sure. Or more importantly,
Sorry, I'm
therefore, so the answer is everyone's wrong.
Yeah.
We put words into your mouth that
So,
we don't.
hopefully the town moderator watches
So,
this.
yeah.
And-
Does anyone have any other questions about, he's given us a lot to absorb here.
Yep.
Does anyone have any other questions for Van Lines here? Rob?
Yeah, just needed it. I think you sound yourself sure. I don't think there is anything. I can't think of.
Well, no, the reason why I said low, right? Because it's not 100% guaranteed that there wouldn't, because legally they could write something off and ask for reimbursement from the town, so I can't say there wouldn't be any. I would be a liar.
5 memberships to the MMA.
Right, so it's $200, like I said, low, but I don't wanna say there's none, because what if there is, and then I said there was none, and then someone's gonna come back and say, well, it costs us $200 more a year, and that's why I'm not gonna be like, oh, okay.
Alright, that's
So,
fine, that's good.
yeah. Believe me, from the Boston Globe, it said they're up, like they could be allowed up to a stipend of 5,000. I know we don't do that, so I didn't want to include those numbers, but I'm just saying there could be a low impact, like there could be a low impact of financial work. Right, so.
Last year we had.
I got 250.
I got nothing.
Jeez.
Anyways.
Another thing I do want to point out, and it just may help with decisions,
You're not-
is I did use on my population growth chart, I only use numbers that have been like certified. So I only used the 2020 census, which was 11,662 people. We all know that there is probably over 12,000 people in the town right now. I don't have an estimate. But so like that graph obviously changes a little bit to show that there is a bigger population. So I mean, we're almost at 13,000, almost at charter levels.
Rob, so not a value to it, but a 5-member board does allow, and Mike can check me because Mike's had a 5-member board, I think, right? The 5-member board does allow legally 2 members to talk.
Exactly, and I think that's a big thing. One thing Walpole did
Yeah.
So Walpole, if you read it, it's in the handout, Walpole did it and they set up a transparency, basically they said, if you're going to talk, just note that you met and you talked about something. You don't have to have it at a public meeting, but hey, we talked about, this is the day we were talking about the meeting.
Yeah.
Right, but but like if people are like, oh, well, you guys were meeting, yeah, we did meet and we reported that we met and we talked about this. And you don't need all the meeting minutes from over the notes, but yeah, we met and we talked about it because we're on the subcommittee to solve this problem. So I think that was solving the issue, people have transparency. So, yeah. But yeah, I get the whole forum thing, and I think that it's also a big problem with them not being able to talk to each other and do things more than once a month.
I think it also fosters some folks thinking, oh, something's going on.
Yeah, well, you're never
Little
gonna.
chat's going on.
Thank God they closed close.
Yeah, yeah. That's gonna happen no matter what we do, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
So I want to give Ben a chance to soapbox for a second.
Sure.
So we actually gave this to the Town Government Study Committee back in 2019 to evaluate a recommendation for the town to see if we should move from 3 to 5 people.
Okay,
Plainville just at their spring town meeting brought forward a proposal to go from 3 to 5 people.
This year or that year?
This year, Plainville did. And obviously Rentham is already at 534. So in your research, and obviously you cited Littleton and Walpole and what was the other one as well?
Fairhaven?
Yeah, it's probably Littleton. Yeah, what have you gathered from all of that to identify what the benefit or experience benefit could be in other communities that are like us?
Like I said, I think you saw more engagement. There was actually, it showed, you know, I know a big thing was like, oh, we're not getting enough people. Especially talking with people around town, the engagement of, if it goes to 5, I will run. No, that's obviously me saying hearsay and doing speculation, but people have, when I was doing this and talking to some people in town, I won't mention names, they were peaked up because it's a less work. But this is you guys do it right here too. It's a thankless job. You don't get paid for it. You're gonna get people complaining about what you do all the time. But so like having that workload just reduced, you know, it's based on, if you have that number, you could see numbers reduced up to 40% of workload, just because you have more members. I think you're gonna see more efficiency because you can do more things without the work to talk to people. You know, so one of the another town I tried to look up data from was Shrewsbury. They just did it, so there's not enough data to back that and stuff like that. But you know, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's great. As you look at possible alternative language, can you also do me a favor, look at the succession portion of it? Meaning, you go from 3 to 5, you don't want to have 3 selectmen getting elected, select board member getting elected in the seat.
So I actually addressed this in here. Oh, so it is in here. So like I put a basic one of a 3-3-2. So it meant we would vote for a 3. Ms. Mecklenburg's chair is coming up. So then we have another 3 and another 2. But I think there's other ways that you could possibly
No, 2-2-1. They have 3.
Right. So it would be a 3-3-2. One runs, you know, 2 of them get elected to run.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You could do a 3-2-1.
Okay, yeah, all right, I misunderstood.
You could actually do.
So
Whoever runs.
one of them gets elected to a 1-year term.
Right, we're never electing 3. We're never electing 3 rows.
Seems like a 3 and a 2 is what the legislative language is for the 2 new bodies. Someone's a 3 and someone's a 2.
Right.
And they, when those are up, they're into a 3-year term based on those.
Right, so just that effort to actually be.
The language we need is out there, it's readily available.
Sure.
It's just a matter of, it's not a friendly amendment that, hey, we make a move to change this from 1 million to 1,500,000. It's just, you're talking
Sure.
legislative language, it's like this.
So I'm sure I'm gonna cite Massachusetts general law and all that
So
stuff.
you do, and it also has to be read verbatim, it has to be read exactly how it's going to be filed.
Sure, yeah.
Not considered.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I can look at it now. I've done it in the past.
Whenever you come up with a language, you should talk to the moderator.
Sure.
It's not one before
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, I reach out just so he's not thrown out right away.
John?
Another question I have, correct me if I'm wrong, the way our chair works currently is we have 3 select board members, 3-year terms. In the third, they're staggered, so in the 3rd year of someone's term is when they become chair, correct? That's not like elected.
It's not out of
It's a way to be.
Right.
So with 5,
But it's tradition, it's not in the bylaw.
oh,
I would just do like every other board in the town, they're voted by the members.
so that's why I wanted to,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't see here, how, with this change, how would we elect chairs?
Same way we always do, right now it's just tradition, like they said, there's no.
So we would need to change that?
No, in the bylaw, it already saying,
All it says is there should be a chair, there should be a vice chair. and there should be-
Right, okay, so I'm, all right, so our tradition is now
Oh, we
broken.
do.
Our tradition is now broken.
Sure.
Tradition could be broken now. I mean, somebody could not elect, two people could have decided not to vote for the person who's up for the third
So
year.
it is currently voted and we're just.
Every time there's a realignment of the board, correct, every year. Yeah.
But it has happened in the past, at least a couple of times, once, where the long term, the member up for reelection was not made chair, because the other two decided not to do that.
I did 2 years in a row during COVID. That was fun.
I bet.
So there would be an election annually for chair? Is that correct?
And it would happen after the May election.
Okay.
You know, the first reorg meeting.
Right.
You could end up getting someone who's chair for like, 50
For 10 years.
I mean, if they're rocking it, then let them have the chair for 15 years if they're really good at their job, you know, and if we keep it down lower.
Take it close.
I get that, but we don't have term limits and if the townspeople like them, they keep putting them in.
We have a vote for January.
We do that in January.
All right. Anyone else have any more questions for Ben? Thank you. We'll read this.
If you have any questions, my email's on there, my phone's on there, phone number's on there. Well, yeah, I was trying to source this. I wasn't gonna say, hey, like, well, again, you know, I could come in here and be like, this is my opinion why, but I think I just want data to show, hey, like, towns, and we did college. I know how to do an APA. I maybe didn't do the greatest in college, but I still know how to do it. Yeah, because again, I could have come out with my whole opinion, but I think it's more of a data driven thing of why I think we should do it, and I think it benefits the town data. Cool, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I will work on getting, if, I don't want to take up too much more time, when I work on getting the appropriate language. And sending it over to the town's moderator, is that something you guys would like me to send to
We,
for re-review, just so they help do whatever you're doing, recommendation or non-recommendation?
our last meeting before we have to write up our vote is next week, so.
I'll have, yeah, well, I'll have the correct wording by tomorrow afternoon. It's, like you said, it's out there. I can go on one of the town meeting.
Oh, that, we have to vote on it, so.
This is gonna be a weird photo.
Yeah, so but we could, if you got it, we.
I'll work on getting it over it. I'll respond to your email and just have the right wording tomorrow. I was like, this is what I think. I'm gonna meet with the, you know, the town moderator. If he thinks this is good, then I'll let you know that he says, okay. But again, I can direct Google search the right words that other towns have used that are, you know, about 3 to 5 minutes, copy and paste and switch out Norfolk. So,
Well, thank you. Take it outside, okay, thank you.
thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't know, you go first. Thank you. Chief, thank you. By the way, the chief was the first, the chief was our first. I apologize. I will ask Michael, then you go first and then we'll discuss the other stuff after you go. There are 3 articles for the meeting next month, Articles 7, 8, and 9. You have Article 7 is the Pondview A football. Or on 7 Pondview A. What does it say?
Yeah, please don't say.
I said Pondview because I live on
Pond
Pond Street.
Okay,
I live on Pond, but I call it Pond Street.
thank you.
It's trying to see.
A fast one.
We're gonna get some ramps put in the house.
I think you
Thank you.
print out. Erica had- Oh, that's it. You're welcome.
I'll take it.
So the two, so the photographs are just to show you where, you know, the railroad tracks field is, which is the field that we are asking CPC to rebuild. The front cover is,
Okay, hold on, is this our now?
oh, sorry.
But we were talking about the
Okay.
Pond Street, not
Okay.
Pond View. Okay, thank you.
So of the two maps, the next group is at Pine Street and then also Freeman Kennedy are the second 2 pages. So Last year, I applied for a planning grant through the Office of Disability. And we were awarded that grant. And as part of that, we are assessing all conservation and recreation lands for ADA accessibility. That grant has been finished and we now have the we just received the document to hasn't been formally accepted, but this was part of that, this assessment. So right now, there is some, but very limited ADA accessibility. We don't have any accessibility to our fields that are considered ADA compliant at either location. There are curb cuts that are not correct. There are paths that are not made out of the correct material. And grass is not an ADA acceptable surface. So what we did was to break it down into a couple of phases because this gets expensive. So what I am asking for though is for the engineering costs for these projects to be done. I have since applied for 2 separate grants for project grants. One for what is in blue on your because I broke it down for each location into 2 phases. So I have applied for a planning grant, a project grant for phase 1 of Pond Street and a project grant for phase 1 of Green Canopy Fields. Each of those projects are about $100,000. Yeah.
Stone dust. You know, are they gonna be big?
There's grading, there's curb cut, there's,
I knew that, but.
yeah, there's accessible parking, there's accessible parking at Green Kennedy on near, like in the middle of the fields.
And then, but it is just, these are all stone dust trails. Well, ultimately, when the grading is corrected,
The ADA trails will.
Yes, the trails themselves.
Okay, gotcha.
Parking is someone that is paved,
the parking in there, okay, thank you.
and the curb cuts need to be there
Okay,
at Pond
yep.
Street.
Okay.
So in blue is what is outlined as what is phase 1. So as the project grants do not allow for engineering costs to be covered. So we are asking for the engineering costs to be covered by the town. The Office of Disability receives a significant amount of grant requests. We don't know that we will get these grants this year. If they are not received, we will reapply and reapply again.
And so in
But
our,
the engineering will, so the engineering will be done.
Okay.
There is the other part of the Pond Street engineering. So the pickleball courts have been lingering for a while. We went back to, it turns out that we needed the planning board did decide that we needed full engineering and peer review, which was going to be $30,000 for the pickleball courts. CPC actually said, no, we need to go back and revisit that with the planning board, and we did, and they came back and said, you need full engineering and peer review. We have combined that engineering work for the pickleball courts with the Pond Street ADA work. And the engineer is going to do it for the same cost.
so, all right, so you're getting
2 for 1.
the green part essentially.
All blue.
Just all of them.
So wait, so I apologize. The pickleball engineering costs will be built into the blue price. So the 79,000 is for both the green and the blue?
No,
No, it's just phase 1 engineering.
yes,
So the phase 1 engineering
But it
for
says 2 projects.
pickleball court plus ADA park at Pond Street is Article 7. And then.
No, I know, but it says 2 projects in Article 7. So I wanted to know that it's 2. Part of it's the ADA, part of it's the pickleball, okay.
That's why it's 70 million instead of 40. And it's only the blue. So we'll need to do engineering for the green phase, for phase 2.
This is. Perhaps I should ask the planning board, but is this part of their bylaws or is this a state requirement or?
it is So as I understand it, so that means I'm not wrong, right? So as I understand it, that's part of the bylaws. And at one point, when the bylaws were being considered, there was, I don't know how far I made it, there was discussion about making an exception into whole projects, and it was decided not to do that.
So that's essentially we're taking money out
Yes.
that are in the same pair of hands. Okay, checking on, it's a different file, it's a different pocket, it's a different guy's pocket.
You're paying an engineer $33,000 to.
Yeah.
No, but we're taking money out of one of our pockets at the town level, putting it in another pocket at the town.
No.
This money is town money,
Yes.
it's CPC money, but it's in my left pocket.
It's
My
going quick.
CPC money and my, I understand it. But. Yeah, whatever,
I have a question with one part.
hold on a second. I understand what you're saying, but it is. Whatever,
There has been discussion about revisiting that
Yeah.
part of the
Okay.
bylaw.
thank you. Ken, did you have a question?
Yes, so there's two, on page 2 of this, and am I looking at the right thing for, what we're talking about here, Mike? So for page 2, there's two different, there's phase 1 design, design and permitting estimate, which is obviously the engineering from 19,800. And then kind of halfway down, also in bold, we've got a 13,400. And then we've got phase 1 and phase 2, design and permitting 33,200. But what you just presented to the board was that the doing this all for one price, so.
No, it's just phase 1.
So-
And we're not doing, and we're actually not using this company for, they've just estimated the engineer, when they did it, they estimated the engineering, we have gone out and got a quote for engineering from an engineer. And that's the number that we lost.
How much is that?
Well, it's part of, it's the number that's.
The 33,200.
It's the number that's.
So it's not all for one, it's two different things, and the sum total is 33,200. They're not, it was kind of presented to us as, oh, they're gonna take care of it all for one price. Well, it's two different projects.
She's talking about, it says 2 projects for one price, she's talking about the pickleball court
That's
and
what I was
phase
trying to
1,
get you. Same question.
not phase 2.
So phase 2 is. Yeah, okay.
So is it? What's the dollar amount then for that's going to the planning company, if you will, the architectural firm, because the town zoning bylaw forces us to pay them?
30.
33. So that's phase 1 and phase 2. Design, permitting.
No, phase 2 is 10. Phase 2 is the green part.
I'm not looking at maps, I'm looking at months.
So now.
I understand, and they're broken out into phase 1 and phase 2.
So.
And this is broken out as a phase 1, 19,800, phase 2, 13,400, total of the two, 33,200.
That's just for the ADA accessibility.
Right.
We're also throwing in the pickleball stuff, which is an extra 33,000.
Are they doing that all for the 33,000?
So when this article was submitted. Say it's correct. We did not have the engineering number. The quote, because it was actually decided at the CPC meeting to come in. So I think this number can be reduced. I had it actually.
So the 19,800 will be added on to the 30,000. There's 19,800 for the design permitting. What, 30,000.
So we could.
So it'll be 49. Not 70.
Right.
We will not make that change, but just ask the question.
I will say, I don't know, I would have to talk to Cynthia about if they decided to keep that and do phase 2, but I haven't seen
General question on these, and it's phrased by us last spring on something, and was also raised by town council, that traditionally CPC articles that have had mandates. The money is only workable for 12 or 18 months, depending on what they're doing.
But it's probably because the pickleball court had an end date and it backfired because.
I understand, that's what the reason we brought it up last spring, but at the same time, I understand you guys held up at the planning board, but, the other thing we don't want is you retiring and your successor not really paying much attention to this for a year, and so,
If these are passed, I will probably make a phone call. So it will be done.
but you know what I'm saying?
I do,
Generally, they should have some sort of revisit date.
I think because.
Because our budget ends every 12 months.
So-
General budget.
Well, I think because it's engineering and it's not weather dependent and all those other things. That they
Yeah.
put it in, they say it's going to be done, and if we get the grant. It has to be done because the work for the grant has to be done by June 30th, it's part of the grant.
Any more questions on 3? Yes. Go ahead, John.
Forgive my lack of expertise, but what are the benefits to stone dust? What's the lifespan and maintenance like on this
It's
ADA
actually
compliant
a-
stone dust trail compared to something like pavement?
So the advantage is that it's not impervious. So if you have, then you have to have drainage issues when you use a impervious surface, but it is actually, I might have. It does, it is a, not.
Your area. Construction.
But when I submitted for this, it's actually,
Like, maybe let me rephrase the question, something easier.
so it's a bit of a path that is.
Yeah, so I don't know the person about this, it just, again, from a layman's perspective, it seems like that stone dust path, if we're worried about it for ADA compliance, could run into ongoing maintenance issues to ensure that it meets ADA compliance. If the stone dust blows away, right, it's wet and kids riding bikes through it, create ruts and those sorts of things. So I'm just curious about fitness of purpose, or that I presume that it's less expensive, right? Especially because we don't need to worry about drainage and those sorts of things, but I'm just wondering what the long-term maintenance costs might be if we're worried about it for ADA compliance compared to concrete, something that's a little more permanent than stone dust.
So the access to Freeman, it's used for asphalt as well, is not just stone dust, it's a harder material. And I can tell you that the stone dust has been used, is at Pond Street at the walking path ramp. And there's some great issues, but not anything to do with the washing away of the stone dust, and that's been there for 24 years. We have touched it up, I think, not even the whole area. There's one area that needs a little bit, we've touched it up twice, lightly.
I mean,
And
I
that's compressed, it's compressed stone dust, so it doesn't wash away.
I understand that, I'm just, again, not knowing these things, my concern is just the maintenance requirements for the walking path around Pond Street. Maybe totally, we may have a much different level of tolerance for the condition of that path than for something that we're expecting to be ADA.
So all of the materials that were designed into this meet ADA requirements.
I understand that, I'm just worried about ongoing cost and maintenance to maintain ADA compliance with this type of material at the time. Compared to, did we compare it to other options like tunnel path or something to that effect? Or is this just what we're going with because it's lower cost?
It's not, we never asked for it to be lower cost, we asked it to be ADA compliant and meet ADA compliance for a period of time. It's so the stone dust path, I mean, there are certain, like the parking agreement, that's more stable surface than just a path, but we're not putting in like a path there. So we are putting in more stable material, especially on the access road, which is also used for emergency vehicles, which is not in great shape. but it also was not.
Follow up
Go ahead.
So I just, some quick research, because I've dealt with this in my other capacity, doing being on a disability committee, mainly with parking and the rampways and all that, but 521 CMR in Mass, which talks about the accessibility and mirrors the federal CFR, says routes, walks, and surfaces that be firm, stable, and slip resistant. And it seems that the crushed stone, unless there's chemical additives to it to make it almost like a hot top material, it's seems debatable if it's actually meets the true ADA requirement. So I'm kind of along these lines of, should we just be spending more to do it with the right material? Then we put this stuff down, potentially 6 months down the road, someone's unhappy with the mobility factor on it, and they're coming at us with this claim, and we're revisiting it yet again.
So we did ask, when we asked for this ADA planning grant to be done for this to meet all of ADA specifications. The material that they have proposed to use for the pass, I mean, I don't know that we never asked for them to give us a less expensive material. We asked to meet ADA compliance.
Could you possibly get us from that proposal the information on the material?
Yes, I have this. I don't know, I can't answer any questions.
I mean, we're ultimately going to just trying to understand maintenance lifespan, right? When is it gonna come back in front of us that it needs to be read?
You know, CPC doesn't pay for maintenance.
Well, somebody's going to say it's a good, I wonder if it'll be paying maintenance, right?
Yeah, no, I'm Rob.
So, I know Crestone is possible to be ADA, this possibility. And my question is about bidding. So, and this may be way beyond us. Can we do, if we do one article, right, but it has 2 projects in it. So under chapter 39M, this is horizontal construction, right? So between 10 and 50,000, you do a three letter bid, you send out 3 letters, 3 responses.
So you're talking about the engineering.
Yeah, I'm talking about the engineering. I could be wrong with it. Thank you. That's why we went to see Kyo here.
Or here.
Or there.
Excellent, okay, good, then I will stop talking.
Does anyone else have any more questions on Article 7? Article 8, which is the premium. It's essentially the same discussion with different things. But I also heard you say, and let me make sure I understand the layout of this one if you want. This is that dirt road, and the dirt road that runs up off the parking lot.
Yeah.
Turns there. What you're saying is that is going to be turned into something more stable and permanent.
Yes,
Because that road is
the 10-foot long.
having coached volleyball for several years. And then the green part, just make sure it's phase 2, okay?
The reason I had them do it in phase 1 and phase 2,
Yeah.
because I have no idea. I mean, and I'm not really keep it something that we could at least start. Project and have at least some accessibility.
Sure. And the numbers are on next page.
And can I take a quick second and try to simplify what the whole situation is, and please correct me if I'm wrong. As it stands today, we have been approved for a grant to pay for the construction cost for both projects at a number somewhere around 300,000.
5,
We have applied for a grant, but have not been committed to yet.
and we will
Got it.
not hear at least another month.
But in order, if we are awarded said grants, in order to receive those funds, we need to have the engineering issue, what we're coming for right now.
Yes.
With both projects, phase 1 and phase 2 is somewhere around $60,000. Okay, thank you.
It's my understanding that someone else knows differently. I don't think any of the disability grants, they specifically exclude engineering as part of it.
That's pretty consistent from my experience.
Does anyone have any questions on the Freeman? Not baseball, field, the Freeman ADA project. Article 8. And I'll be back to. Article 9 is the rebuild of the baseball. And I'm gonna look ask for the layout. But, world. I'm gonna look at the map though, rather than.
That works. It's the field at the end of the green.
Oh, wait, okay, I have the ordinance and stuff. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Closest to the railroad tracks.
And a couple years ago, we authorized the rebuild of a couple fields, including, I thought, this one.
No, this field has never been rebuilt.
Okay, because there was a lot of discussion about,
We
I
have,
guess it was this one, or there was concerns about it. Rebuild this one or this
so the largest field in the middle is no longer the large field in the middle. It has been rebuilt. And that is the field that was rebuilt and is much more. A lot of our fields have been rebuilt. So several years ago, we didn't really have any maintenance plan in place. So we do have a maintenance plan in place, and I don't know if or not, but we collect field maintenance fees to do that. DPW does mow, and they do some infield work when they have time, but they don't have a lot of staff. But we do have a nice piece of machinery to take care of infield when they can. But I also hired people to do work. So we have been keeping up. Once we redo a field, we have been much better at keeping up with the field. This is the one field that has not been rebuilt for, I'm guessing, 45 years. I've been here 27 instead. It is to a point that it's just not safe. The pictures. So, and it's very hard to see, taking pictures of the grass, but if you look at this picture from the mound to the third baseline, it dips in. So those are called lips. And for this age group, which is 7-year-olds, if a ball hits one of the lips, that takes a bad hop. It can easily, and their 7-year-olds are very low to the ground, it can easily hit them. So
Their teeth are lower.
well, they're leaning over to get ball. So, and if you look at this picture, if you look at the third baseline, and you look at where the bottom of that fence is, it's a slope down. That's because the infield mix has been built up. So the infield mix is a clay and sand material. It is not material that is easily raked. It's almost impossible to rake out of grass. You can blow it sometimes, but you have to do regular maintenance. So which we have gotten better at. We've also gotten much better at doing annual larger repairs, but still maintenance. We rebuilt mounds. We didn't used to do that on a regular basis. I just spent about $5,000 to redo a field that spent about $20,000 on not too long ago, because but it's maintenance. It's because of use, and we planned for that. So our fields are.
So the discussion is that you mentioned that you can't break out the infield material. Are you replacing that material with something is breakable, or
No,
is it just going to be graded? Are you just going to be grading?
It's just, so that to rebuild this field, that will all be taken out.
Yeah.
It will all be leveled and it will be graded to a quarter, an eighth inch.
Okay.
It has to all come out. I mean, it's, it's like we look at Fenway Park and like that's rebuilt several times a year. So our fields are built several times, once every, but the good news is it's not, we used to have to do a lot more. Every 4 years, 5 years, because we weren't doing regular maintenance. We don't have to do that.
Any questions on the baseball field? This is mostly baseball or all baseball?
That's always. And that will also have some irrigation heads in it, so It's another thing that is in place now. We have our acorn fields, our fields are not this color. They are all green.
You're adding
Matches my lawn.
irrigation being added as part of this, or?
Yes, we'll just put.
You have a well.
We do have a well, and we are either we'll probably put in 6 to 8 heads. We will not be irrigating the outfield because we don't need to.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. And,
I can check on the price.
that would be nice. My understanding, this is your last town meeting.
And retiring
Thank you for
in January.
for appearing before us, sometimes a hostile audience. I appreciate that. What? No, I'm not looking at you, I'm looking around. And I didn't need to pause.
I may not know the answer, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Appreciate it.
Happy to find it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Would you like to join us? Yeah, I'd like to join us.
Oh,
Well, right here. You would like your microphone. Aaron. You're gonna move over.
I'll go over there, yeah.
Oh, no, oh, okay. There we go. We're all set.
The field is old enough, you may have to bring it to historical.
Yeah.
I made an under, I'll finish that. Field maintenance in Fenway versus all of the fields. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Michael, I'm not sure you met everyone. You heard us do roll call, we'd like to just, you want to. Do our. Saving rounds.
Oh.
Oh, what?
I actually missed your roll call.
Oh, that's right, you were here.
I was convening the town administrator screening committee across the street, so had to help them organize.
So, why don't we go here? I think some of us may have had, but some of us haven't.
This year, next year.
We started.
David Lewis.
I'm Melissa Sear, I've done the meetings to go.
Yeah.
Cheryl.
Jonathan Horowitz.
Thank you. There's a few articles that we wanted to discuss. Article 1, you're doing committee hearings first.
Yeah, I could get that out of the way. I don't think there's anything. I have nothing.
Welcome. Moving on. Right now, there's no unpaid bills or.
There are no unpaid bills.
And I checked with, won't be any in a month or.
I checked with Todd and he assures me there are none.
Article 3 is the transfers, and you have a transfer thing, but if you want to go to.
How do we go to Article 4 and then we do it with Chief Go and I can stick around for Article 3.
Great. There's 3 items on here. 2 of them are police infrastructure, radio related items. For $300,000, if I can do my math correctly, I think we're around $1,000 showing that. But Chief, you want to tell us what we're doing here?
So
We're trying to do.
sure, obviously, you all know that I just started a month ago.
Yep.
So when I did start here, it was brought to my attention that the current status of the radio towers that we have, the 2 tower sites that we have for police frequencies are at end of life and no longer serviceable in terms of upgrade or repair. So as it was put to me, we're a lightning strike away from a catastrophic failure of communication We've also got issues with, I believe, transmission power, and reception power out of those sites. We did reach out to Allcom, they were the original installer of, the equipment on those sites and the provider of our portable, radios. They're the ones that basically had provided an initial quote months ago to Chief Hines. For whatever reason, it hasn't been, approved or no project has been started to repair the issues. I've reached out subsequently to Industrial Communications. They're a different vendor, different provider. Because I'm familiar with Allcom, I have nothing negative to say about them, but they are not a vendor of Motorola hardware. Motorola is really kind of the industry standard for public safety. They set the standard under which all of the other equipment kind of falls. Allcom is not a dealer of Motorola equipment. They deal in Tate, Harris, and other equipment. It's my understanding that when the new police station was built, Allcom provided quotes for radios. They purchased Harris. Harris are not Motorola. They don't last long. We've had failures of our police radios, kind of going back and forth between the tower and infrastructure improvements to the portable radios. And it was brought to my attention because there was no request for those for capital. But it was brought to my attention that several officers were now purchasing their own portable radios out of their own pockets to replace failing technology on our end. So that is also something very concerning to me. The Harris portables that they currently have are no longer, you can't purchase them anymore from Harris. Harris has moved on from that technology. Several of the radios are now completely out of service and can't be repaired. Another handful of them refurbished and redeployed. I was issued a new portable, which already broke. The clip on the back broke. It's just substandard equipment, and I don't know why it was purchased in the first place, but it was. So I reached out to Industrial for a quote on the portable radios. They did provide that quote, and then I asked them to provide a competitive quote for the radio tower build out as well, because they also would install Motorola hardware on the towers, which would be compatible with the Motorola equipment that would be used in the deployed field. And those are the two quotes that you see before you now to basically repair and replace technology that is no longer repairable or replaceable at the two sites, and to replace it with 25 portable radios, which will, in my professional opinion, last well into the next 7 to 10 years.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah,
You remember when the current radios were purchased?
So
I have a strange feeling that I might have been on the committee a lot.
So I would assume that when funds were allocated for the new construction, the portable price was probably rolled into that. I'm just speculating into that overall cost of construction and tower, and when the towers were built, it was probably rolled into the proposal.
Are those two towers both located? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Are those two towers both located near? Are they one near your station and one someplace?
So that's a great question. The Weaver location and the Pondview Tower, or they're both water towers. I'm thinking. So I'm
Across the
not.
street, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely
Yeah,
familiar, but I was at the MEC earlier
Yeah.
and reintroducing myself to Bill, the director there, and talking to him, and he was asking about space on their tower. But then Daryl True indicated that one of the towers was actually right next to the facility,
Yeah.
but higher up at higher elevation.
There's a water there.
Yeah, there is, and I
There is.
believe that there's a tower, there's a
Yes,
tower.
okay, so
So
when you're talking infrastructure, you're talking equipment on.
on existing structures, yes, correct.
I would be interested in when the last round of radios were purchased, if they were purchased. It's just,
As
it's,
far as I know, about 5 years ago is what I would speculate, because that was when the new station was built, and that was when, my understanding, the new radios were deployed.
and 7 to 10 years is a reasonable lifespan.
For a Motorola product, so.
Well, okay, but it's your expectation. Because I don't know, I'm just curious.
So I've got much more experience with Motorola
Right.
radios, and so, just in the way of, an example, I just left Holliston.
Yeah.
Holliston is using APX, 4000 series radios, and Ken would be familiar with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how old they are, but I know that they are no longer serviced.
2014, and then
2014.
like Dave was 2021.
Right, and so they're now on the APX 6000, which are the oldest in-service model portable that they have. I've spec'd out the parts for the N50, which is basically the replacement for the APX 6000, which is their workhorse model. It's gonna be relatively future-proof because it is their newest iteration, design iteration, and it is only, maybe I believe about $100 more than the APX 6000, but the APX 6000 is gonna be phased out in the next 12 to 24 months for Motorola. So I'm trying to future-proof the purchases. My experience with Motorola is they last a very long time.
Joyce, did you have a question?
I did, please. Chief, the 25 radios, does that put every single one of them out in the street immediately, or can they be rotated? Or is there a cushion in here in case one broke or whatever?
So that's a great question. My initial proposal, when I sat with the town administrator and finance director, was for 30. Because it's my belief that more is better in terms of crisis situations, and that if we have mutual aid officers come in with different frequencies, different radios, we have radios to then deploy to the field should we have an emergency circumstance. That was a big ask, I understand that. 25 would be my minimal recommendation for a 22 officer department, so that there's a radio in the hand of every police officer with several spare radios just in case something catastrophic happens to one of the portables that's deployed. And I think that, over time, we may be able to acquire a radio here, a radio there down the road to try to build up that inventory of radios. But I do see the N50 as being in service for at least the next decade, that model.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin.
So first and foremost, I feel like we've been talking about radios for at least 3 years. I think that Tim had brought it up previously, and we had identified that on the priority list. There's just some much more important things going on.
Sure.
First and foremost, Chief, could you please just talk about the operational impact of not so much the equipment going down on the water towers, but more of the personal radios? If those were to go out for a moment during a situation, just what kind of operational impact are we talking about?
We've actually had several instances. I just got a to-from letter from one of the sergeants this past week, where and we have recordings that we are happy to share with this channel and also at town meeting necessary. We had one incident that I had learned about when I had transferred here to this department with an officer that had made a car stop, on the edge of the town. And he was out of his cruiser. The man fled into the brush. He was completely unreadable on the radio. Dispatch was calling him over and over again. Thankfully, a sergeant had arrived at the scene. Cruiser radios have a stronger signal. He was able to call off his location. There was a use of force incident there that took place, and the man was subsequently taken into custody. But I think that you can all see that if a radio does fail in the field, it can be a life and death scenario for the officer. And the fact that, I can't say enough that I had to take an inventory of all of the radios that were purchased off of the economy by our officers, and then allow those to actually be used, because I own those radios, and if they fail, why are they not using our issued radios? And so this was a whole dilemma, which is why really kind of front loaded the radios onto this capital request. This was an unexpected request, but it's definitely one that is hand in hand with the tower infrastructure issues that we're facing right now. So
Appreciate the context. I think that's important when we talk about what the impact of trying to identify.
I'm going to provide recordings, we have all of them, so yes.
And then one more, Mike, I know that you're just as new, for lack of a better term, but as part of the Senate state budget, I believe we received a community allocation for the improvement of radio systems in some way, shape, or form for public safety. I had this nagging feeling it was for fire, not for police. Happen to know if that's the case?
I do not know if that's the case or not. I do know that a lot of state grant money is all has dried up, so there's not a lot of opportunity there to get funding for these. And I will also share with you that my initial plan was not to do anything in November with any of this stuff.
Right.
But after speaking with Chief Hines, Chief Barrett, I felt it important that this public safety issue be addressed in November rather than punting that to the annual town meeting, which is where we push off the rest of the council requests. Everybody else came to us with capital. It's just we're not doing it now. It's not okay.
Thank you.
That was my question. So, John, you have a question?
Thank you. Please don't interpret this as not supporting the request, but obviously you prefer Motorola equipment, more reliable, longer lasting, hopefully upgraded, future proof to some extent. We're using Harris radios today. Harris. Okay, so this, I would presume, obviously, lesser quality, not as reliable, all of those good things, but I'm also going to presume cheaper or less expensive than the Motorola. So my question is, when we evaluate apples to apples, so the Harris system is going to last 5 years, Motorola system is going to last 10. And we look at this at a per year cost to us, because getting something in a Harris system, at just using this as hypothetical, and replacing it twice in 10 years, replacing it every 5 years for 2 cycles may be less of a per year cost than a one Motorola system that lasts for 10 years. So just like kind of on a apples to apples comparison, when you go to the grocery store and you can't compare two things, you got to look at the per ounce price or whatever it is. Can we look at these radios that same way to just kind of get a value comparison?
I mean, we do it on a percentage basis, so the uplift to Motorola for the I don't know for the radios, but for the infrastructure, it's about a 25% increase.
And so if it's a 25% increase, I said for the infrastructure.
That was for the infrastructure.
Making, let's assume, maybe this is a bad assumption, 25% increase for the portables as well, or is it higher for?
I think speak fluently to this if you want.
I mean, right, if we're gonna spend 25% more for this system, is it gonna last 25% longer? That's so.
Do you want me to provide some context?
Put down the context.
Here's the context. I sit in the board for the Greater Boston Police Council and Bay Boston Area Police Emergency Radio Network. So I'm in as much in the know. The chief had asked me about this when he first started, and I was pushed to go to Motorola behind the scenes away from Harris. Harris is a low bid product the military uses, and they use it because it's throwaway. They buy millions of them. They come in a giant Cognex box when they're junk. At the junk box, they take new ones out. But that's basically Harris's niche, is they're a low bidder government contractor. And that's why we're here doing this at the 5-year mark. So I just got almost the same 300,000 approved at my place last night for portable radios. The portable radios I'm replacing on Motorola's that were bought in 2010. So we're 15 years later, and they still work fine. There's no support, they're end of life. They're still physically in good shape, but they need to be replaced because we can't do anything with the firmware. The Harris stuff they have is end of life, it's less than 10 years old, and their stuff's falling apart. So it's a lower quality thing. So the reality is the Motorola stuff might last 15 years, but it's life safety equipment, so you don't want to put that stuff in somebody's hands. The infrastructure stuff, my infrastructure was all done in 2018, and it replaced stuff from 1992, all Motorola. So that's the context of how long that lasts, where we're chasing Harris and some tape products here, I think, that are all in the 10-year range, because they were the value prop at the time. But the value is, if we don't have money, okay, we can do this, it's a Band-Aid, but then we're revisiting it, so. I think you find that for the 25%-ish cost increase, and the other issue is too, you can't really mix and match. Their vendors pushing them to convert to a digital format, and the way the digital transcription between the two products is just ever so slightly different. And it can cause end user problems, we'll just say reception problems is the layman's term, so. So that's just my perspective is, I fully support this, obviously, and there is a very, slightly modestly cheaper option out there, and my behind the scenes feedback was, don't go for that, because a board like this will be dealing with this again in less than 10 years.
I know we did it, you and I are probably showing to them.
I remember. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's the question.
Late teens or something.
That's bringing the Stone Dust Trail, but it's the exact same concept, why I'm asking, it's just, I would rather, I mean, it's just is the food store squeeze type of question, right? Which is, to me, if we're gonna get 50% more life and more value, does that justify a 25% cost increase? Of course, my opinion, of course it does.
I think you get more than 25%.
So I think the point in this is that's, town meeting and how these things go, and if there's a cheaper option, people are gonna demand that. So my point in asking this question is, I think we just need to, you articulated it well, I just think we need to be prepared to present that value point of view, right, in justifying the higher.
Anyone have any questions? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. I appreciate it.
Meeting you.
Nice meeting you all as well.
You want to finish Article 4?
Pardon me?
Want to finish Article 4?
What else? Yeah, okay.
There's two other. Yeah, 32,292.
Yeah.
Costs. So, the fire chief ordered a new ambulance.
Right.
And as part of that ambulance is a power cot that allows them to load people on and off our ambulance. There was a significant price increase on that particular piece of the project.
Okay.
The chief had applied for an earmark grant to pay for that. But the earmark grants were all pulled back. So he was sitting there with this ambulance. He made an assumption he was going to get the earmark. Shouldn't have probably done that, but he also didn't have a choice because the current power cots that we have are not compatible with the system that's in the ambulance, so they would not have worked. So there was a mismatch in all of that. So, and I apologize for not having the chief here. He was off in another meeting, fire station building committee, but so he and I spoke about it, trying to figure out how to do this. There was this funds in the ambulance folder, that's the receipts there, and I felt that was the right place to go and to do. He was looking at trading in a fire engine to do this. I'm like, no, stop, just back up, and we'll find another funding source. So we've also reached out to Senator Roush's office and Representative Vaughn to find out what's going on with this, but I do know the state has pulled back a lot of the earmarks because they're trying to deal with the deficit that they have to deal with this fiscal year. So that's why we're here with that. And when we have the funds, that's what it's there for. It's your reserves, it's your retained earnings within your receipts. So appropriately.
It's not on your big sheet here. You have a sense of what the balance of the is.
Yeah, it's actually there.
Oh,
It's there, yes. So I just, so I use, just so you know, I use this, something like this for town meeting and now my fourth community using something like this. I'm also going to add the articles for CPC on here as well, so that as a summary, the folks at town meeting can see what our opening balance is, what the uses were, and our closing balance are, because we always get those questions.
Which one to have a lot of questions.
Right here.
We always ask these questions.
You gotta get them to take a piece of paper on the way in though.
As you should, yeah. And I'm trying to anticipate this. I've done this for a long time, and I was also in your shoes and part of town meeting years ago, and my thing was, oh, gonna have left after you finish all this.
David also grills though on the CPC different cuts for housing and recreation.
So in other words, there's sub funds.
There's sub-funds.
Now Cindy sent. Cindy may have sent, it to me, I'll make sure she did all for it there, yeah, but.
I'm gonna do just a gross number here, it's just easier.
That's what
Otherwise,
it
it's
is.
actually gonna go like this.
They need to start looking for big, so, sorry to say it, but, just as.
Maybe historical house, you say.
Right.
Yeah, right,
Right.
Yeah, OPEB is the pension.
OPEB is pension.
We need to add the. Opioid fund that we created opioid fund.
We could add that to the list.
I mean, it's small dollars.
That money doesn't sit with us either, right? We're trying to get the money out the door as fast.
Correct, I'm trying to do.
Right, that's what I mean.
But it may be helpful.
A lot of money that we have questions, but next spring we'll have questions, so.
I'll talk to Todd and see what else we have. These are the things that I knew about, so I was like, yeah, so I here, we'll go from there. I'll have Todd. That's, we have. I think
Another thing I ask Todd every year, and it's a bit of a struggle with retained revenue.
sorry, which.
So we have a bunch of retained revenue. That individual agency.
Revolving.
Revolving.
I mean, with all the secrets.
But it's never, it's.
So recreation is the big one.
Recreation is a big one. And we had some questions on that last year that I don't sufficiently get. So, but you know, there's a bunch that have like $5,000 caps, so I'm not overly concerned except there's a bunch.
Well, I tell you what, I'll have to have that ready for you for your annual meeting.
I appreciate that.
I'll be away, I'll watch.
Todd will look at me cross-eyed when you make that, they'll call me and look at me cross-eyed over that request, so, all right. So this helps us out the transfers, which is our.
Yep, so any other questions on the ambulance piece? Well, set with that one. Okay. Article 3. So, free cash is certified at 2.9 million.
Yep.
And as I said, I met with department heads, they put in all, I opened up. Clear government, I said, put your capital request in there, we had $85 million worth of ask for this fiscal year. I don't know why I looked in the other pocket, I just couldn't find it, so. But I did sit with a couple of the departments, I didn't sit with all of them, because as I said, my thought process was, let's do it in the annual town meeting, because I don't know what our budget process is going to look like. I know that you used 1.1 million last year out of free cash and used 400 some odd thousand dollars out of your stabilization account to balance the budget. Don't know what this year is going to look like. Haven't really had a chance to think about all of that.
Sure.
One of the things I have asked Todd to give me is the where all the free cash came from. Was it excess revenue or was it reduced costs? That would help from a budgetary perspective. When we're building the next fiscal year, we at least know, did we underestimate our receipts or we overestimate our costs? So we're working on all of that so that when you guys get to your annual budgeting, you actually have kind of an idea of what. But I didn't, as I said, I didn't want to use up any of that, so I'm going to retain as much of it as possible. And if you can, we'll do other capital projects next year. So what I brought forward to you this year for transfers was about $495,000 worth of funding. The majority of that is the $405,000 going back into your stabilization account, which I think is an appropriate use of the free cash. Let's put that money back in where it came from. The other item is this, and I'm going to go back to the special education stabilization fund because that comes from a different place. Recreation salaries, you just met with Ann. Ann is retiring. She has accrued vacation time and we have to pay out. We don't have a funding mechanism for that. One of the things that I think you need to look at as you build it, steer you in a different direction toward April. It's April, right? May, toward your May town meeting. One of the things you may want to look at is a salary reserve account. To establish a salary reserve and put funding in there for things like this, for people retiring, unexpected types of things that crop up. We just had the police chief, he retired. He had a lot of time on the books, so we paid him a lot of money, out the door. Some of that is stabilizing now because sick time, we have caps on it, so that will be helpful as we go forward with some of the older folks. Some of the folks have been here longer. Longer tenure.
There we go.
Yeah, I have experience, I have a different structure, but one of the things I wanted to do this year was, I didn't want to get caught short, because if we have to pay that out of that account, then we can't fill that position as quickly as we should. Right, so I wanted to put that out there, since we have the funding, let's fund that. I know that's retirement coming. I don't know what else is out there, just don't.
Sure.
But I do know about this one, so I wanted to make sure that we didn't get caught short. So that's the 20,150. That is for 270 hours of vacation time. So she gets 200 hours every year, 5 weeks times 3. And then she was allowed to carry over 70 hours of vacation time. Justin allowed that for whatever reason. I'm not a big fan of that, because it becomes just this, an unfunded liability to the town. And I'm not big on unfunded liabilities. So that's why that 20,150. I think that was a
Long standing.
We carry over probably.
I think
A lot of stuff got improved during COVID that never got used. And
Yeah, I understand that, but our protocol is 5 days. Carry over unless there's extenuating circumstances, and there could very well be, because we're still getting caught up in COVID, whatever. But I think one of the things I always do with communities that I work in is January, I remind people that they need to take their vacation time. It's like, start thinking about it, because come June, we're only gonna be able to carry over 5 days. Just remind them of that. I'm planning on doing that if I'm still sitting here in this chair in January, that belongs to our employees. So just FYI. Anyways, that's the recreation salary, so that's why. Any questions on that one? Okay. Next one was the Medicom and emergency assessment. After we did the budget, filed the budget, got an additional assessment from Medicom in the amount of $15,873. Apparently they adjusted what they were doing and hit us with another assessment, additional 15,700, 15,800.
and
I fully apologize, I don't wanna be the one that nitpicks pennies on the $70 million budget, we're gonna nickel and dime this, but this is a super special pet peeve of mine, because so
do you know what Ken does for a living?
I'm the police chief in Bellingham. And I oversaw the merge to regional dispatch in Foxborough.
Congratulations.
So I've lived this experience, and you know, my unofficial statement is that regional dispatch doesn't actually save money, and we're learning that here, this exercise, because if we go back in the budget, I did that earlier today, to see what the police department's budget was for dispatch 4 or 5 years ago when they still had them, versus what we're now paying the MEC to get a third of a dispatcher. There's an insane disparity, and the MEC took in $1,801,343 in grants from E911 for FY26, plus their assessments from all these towns. So, and I love Bill Keegan, great guy, he's my boss in Foxborough. This is not a knock on Bill by any means, but obviously the numbers aren't adding up there, and I don't have access to the MOU we originally signed with the MEC, but I don't know what mechanism there is in there for them to come to us mid-fiscal year and say, we have a problem with our budget, so pay us more now. Is there even a reopener clause that here we are, we're a quarter of the way through the fiscal year and we can't get our house in order, so you all, the 6 communities, or is this just Norfolk, I don't know.
I think this was everybody. I think
Yeah.
This is our portion of that.
Right.
That we got.
So our portion of budgeting challenges is it even legal for them, you know, through the MOU, is it even enforceable for them to say mid-fiscal year, oh, you have to give us this much more now, or what? We're not gonna answer 911, we're not gonna answer when the fire engine calls, like, so that's my pushback on this, is that to me, it's highly inappropriate that they're coming to us with an assessment. It's not like the tower fell down, it's some catastrophic thing that affects all of us, this is just their budget isn't sustaining what they're doing, and I can go on about that for hours, I'm not gonna pontificate about that, but and you know, to me, it's just highly inappropriate they're coming to us for this, for anything mid-year. That's my piece on that at least without,
like you're saying, without more explanation as to what the contributing
Yeah,
factors are.
I think it would be important.
I can get you more information,
Yeah.
cause I just got this one the other day from Todd, so I can find out what the deal is with that. I can also see if I can dig up the MOU when I get that to you.
That's right. What's the governing situation? We have some sort of seat on.
Yeah, we have
the board, right?
There's a board.
It should be, there's likely two boards, it's likely the board of directors, which should be the committee in each town. I don't know about the two add-on towns, Mendon and Millville, and then there should be separately, in trying to us, next level down from that would be a governing board of usually all the chiefs. And then they have their own hierarchy within Bill's their executive director, increment to whatever the title is, the consultant,
I think he's out of there now.
is he gone?
Yeah, Bill's gone.
And then they have a hierarchy, and this is where I say what happens with a regional down the road is lose money because they have a chief, if you will, a deputy chief who when you have dispatchers within your own public safety, you have civilian dispatchers. And they're overseen by the hierarchy within the organization. They have now created an entire hierarchy that we're funding on top of the actual people doing the work. So that's and it gets expensive.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the money's for. That's like Kevin said, that's the $1 million question. Did a server blow up and they lost everyone's data and it's 90,000 to replace it, or did they not manage their overtime budget?
I will get you the data and I'll funnel that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
End of rant.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then the last one is Norfolk Aggie assessment. We actually originally budgeted for 12 students, so we have 13. So we have an additional student going in Norfolk Aggie, and that's the price per student is $11,500, which is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, you're right.
Wasn't that number much higher 2 years ago?
The number of students.
The number of students that we were sending to Norfolk.
In the programs. But that may be like 10 years ago.
I think when we were figuring out the costs, when they were going to approve the building and what our projected assessment would be per year.
This is ag.
This is Norfolk Aggie, so.
In here.
Frank County.
Thank you so much. I
thought that's where you were going.
Yeah, I said building here.
Yeah, Aggie's always been, that's a big number.
Actually, it is.
Like 40 kids for.
There's a kid who I guess,
Tri-County since, Tri-County since, when I was at North Alabama, we sent students to Tri-County and I followed them all the time. That's when I learned that the only thing we're constitutionally required to deliver for services is education. They reminded me of that. I went to the State House, that's all. We don't have to say, yeah, right.
So,
And then the last one is the Special Education Stabilization Fund.
okay.
So what happened was, after we had done the budget and the state finally figured out what they were doing, there was an additional $77,000 that came in under Chapter 9, Chapter 7. The superintendent then reached out to me and said, "Yeah, I want my $77,000 that came in first." And I said, "No, because as always, on the cherry sheet, there's the state give it to you on this line and then we take it away every place else." So the net was $43,286. So I went back to the superintendent. We went back and forth on this on a couple of occasions. And she went back to her budget subcommittee. And they actually came up with this as an alternative, which I thought was a reasonable alternative. They said was, well, can we get then the net on the state aid, on the cherry sheet, that net dollar amount, can we put that into special education stabilization account? Because we took money out of that to budget for this fiscal year. We took actually more than that out of there. We have balanced their budget for this fiscal year. I thought that was an ingenious approach to this, and we sat down and negotiated it, and I was comfortable with that. I was comfortable coming to you folks to say, I think we should do that. We know we have this additional funding that's going to be incoming for us. Let's put it someplace where we can use it for education, but it's not the entire 77,000, because if I had done that, we had to take the difference out of free cash, or I would have had to go back to another budget and cut that budget, so the money there. So I'm comfortable with it. Hope everybody else is too, but I thought that was an ingenious approach and a well negotiated agreement.
So just to understand, you said 77,000 extra
Came in under chapter 7.
what's happening to that 30?
There isn't, because 77 came in under chapter 70, and then other line items were reduced. So the net cherry sheet number was this 43,286. Because it's funny, when I get the cherry sheet, everybody always looks at the front side of the cherry sheet. I always I look at the back and I go, okay, we need to take the money away from me. So we had additional costs for tuition out, that reduced amount of money in general government funding, so they took it out of this line item and put it up here for education. So it's the shell game that the state plays all the time. And I felt that this was a good way to do this. And so they got off the 77,000. Thank you very much, because I really don't have that.
So if I can put it in different terms, so I think that I know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's 77,000 on the cherry sheet.
It was only on the one line item.
Right, or it was school money.
Chapter 70. There was this
The rest came in. Okay.
everything came out of all these other line items that they reduced and moved stuff around, and like I said, the net to the town, 43,286. And I didn't want to give it to them in their operating budget, because then they start like 42,286 higher. It's like, yeah, let's not, so I think this was a reasonable approach, and I was very happy that they came back.
They expressed a concern about using sped money last year. Yeah, I guess we'll help mitigate that.
How much did we use last year? I don't remember.
I think it's
48,000.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's this number.
it was a good amount.
Yes. They cut it, they cut it from like 200,000 to 100,000. So I don't know.
Also important to remember that our entire state aid is 4.6 million last year. And we spent 15 million on education. So it's not like we're spending, it's only chapter 70 that goes in there.
Oh, yeah, no, correct, and I had that discussion with the superintendent, like, it's not just, there's all the other, the other costs, and you've got the majority number of employees, so your cost for overhead for those employees is a significant piece of that, for health insurance, life insurance.
That's what it
pension, all that stuff, so it's a big number, and my concern was, well, if I give you 77,000, if you go and hire somebody, now you've created another issue for the town, other line items that are not associated with school budgets, but that was my argument. And to their credit, we were able to actually have a conversation about that, and I had a very nice discussion with Ingrid, appreciated her doing it.
Anyone have any other questions for Mike on any of the articles we're on for you? No problem.
So where are we with the warrant? Is the warrant closed?
The one is close, and sorry.
Well, no, it seems like we're gonna have to change the numbers of the ones the CPA articles.
So the 79.5 is down to 50. And
We can adjust the numbers, but we haven't printed the warrant yet.
Okay, you guys don't need to re-vote a new number.
No, we have, the select board hasn't voted it. I reviewed with them. You can't have a draft Monday. And at their next meeting, we'll actually vote.
Oh,
But by then I should have printed and all of our numbers in place, and we'll stand this to show all the articles. I highly recommend we do this every year. Particularly with the financial articles, it's so easy to follow as you're going through the warrant. So I hopefully I'll leave it place. Lasting impression here.
it'll be Mike's spreadsheet.
Mike's spreadsheet. Well, remember, at this rate, it'll be Mike's memorial.
I didn't want to say that.
Mike's spreadsheet.
Thank you. Donna, did you have a question?
Hey, Donna Jones, this was selectmen said that the payment of little taxes for the person who came through at 0 this year.
That's correct. 0.
So they get
That's gonna be an impact somewhere down the road if we built it into the budget, but I don't doesn't change anything for the 12,000.
It's always been considered a variable piece of income. I don't think we've ever I hung a hat on, it definitively.
I don't know what you do.
So that's a question on that. Payment in lieu of taxes means that for me, if there's no payment, then you not have the right to.
No,
No.
don't, yeah, don't, because.
And by the way, the prison mitigation is actually a different animal than pilot. The state does pay pilot, there's a pilot number on the cherry sheet. And it includes all the state land conceivably, but this extra prison mitigation money is a legislative throw-in every year. And because Walpole used to have a chairman, they got a lot more money for their prisoners than we got for ours, because we didn't have a chairman.
We have a house, but then they
People
closed
was
all, also we lost 4 members in the House and 2 members in the Senate, and all of a sudden. It's
So-
difficult to get that pushed through down to the majority.
So it doesn't have any impact now. But it will potentially in the fall, but I would like, it if we don't budget for it, and it's the price. It would be going into free cash if we got it, but, so. Yeah.
I have a question, somebody might answer. Do we have a disability commission in town?
We have,
Even ADA.
we have an ADA compliance.
So I guess this goes back to the previous, the rec article.
So what's the HR director? So my HR panel.
We were talking about the
Yeah,
CPC article, we were talking about the stone dust cap and why we're not just paying, that sort of thing, and I'm just, is there someone that can give us true legal ADA guidance, not a professional firm, but someone say, yes, what you're putting down is ADA compliant. I know, obviously, what we're approving is only the money for the study of the engineering, that sort of thing, but let's not engineer a product that if we put down opens us up to a problem a year from now.
I'll talk to Ann and have Ann reach out to Matt. I think Matt's the right place to go.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that ultimately would.
40 seconds of Google research.
Yeah,
told me, no,
and-
good, this is not good.
Yeah,
But I don't think it's a little bit more than just stones, but
Yeah, but it to be allegedly, to be what I read, it has to have some sort of chemical compound in it.
So I'm gonna say that drawing doesn't give us, I don't know where that drawing comes in.
I'm sure it is ADA compliant to the data that's put down. My concern with that is what happens long term. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It was.
Yes, I don't wanna do this right now. I'd rather get the information and then, fine.
Yeah, I'll have Ann reach out to Matt. And
Appreciate it.
it's a 5-minute phone call. It's this, you
What's the lifespan and what kind of maintenance appliances should you have?
Yeah, we built I had an issue with Matt with Albert. Playground, money that was donated, and somebody filed a complaint.
Financially, can we avoid that, not even the maintenance aspect, can we avoid a complaint the day something's put down?
I went from $32,000 to $32,000, like that.
Thank you.
Done with me?
We're done with you.
Wow.
We're gonna vote on minutes and then recess.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate you.
Wanna come watch us next week?
Thank you. What, you want to look at the citizens gather?
I don't.
Well, someone's going tomorrow night, it's the fires.
I'm on, that's my calendar.
Okay.
Fine. Paper folder.
Oh, we only need one folder?
It's like. It's like a book in American Pie, look at stacks.
We're gonna have a problem with many people are allowed meetings, people are gonna drive a folder around houses. I think I'm like 2 or 3 weeks. All right.
The rule of what?
We have some minutes to approve.
Did we forget to approve minutes last week?
No,
No, we did.
because I couldn't remember how many we done.
I went home like, I don't think we did minutes. I don't know.
This kept you up all night.
I worried about, as a former clerk, okay, a former clerk.
I know.
We have minutes from the first minute meeting.
Yes, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 1st, 2025.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Accept the motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.